I can't believe you're still watching me babble on about cooking lessons, which isn't really much of a cooking lesson as much as it is an interior monologue of a woman giving dinners for her husband's friends, blah blah blah. Anyway, back to the cooking lessons by Rosario Castellano. Shouldn't it be time to turn on the stove? Low flame so the broiler will start warming up gradually, which should be greased first so the meat will not stick. That did not occur to me. There was no need to waste pages on those recommendations. I'm very awkward. Now it's called awkwardness, but used to be called innocence, and you loved it. But I've never loved it. When I was single, I used to read things on the sly, perspiring from the arousal and shame. I never found out anything. My breasts ached, my eyes got misty, my muscles contracted in spasms of nausea. The oil is starting to get hot. I let it get too hot, heavy-handed that I am, and now it's spitting and spattering and burning me. That's how I'm going to fry in those narrow hells, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. But child, you're not the only one. All your classmates do the same thing or worse. They confess in the confession. They do their penance and are forgiven and fall into it again. All of them. If I had continued going around with them, they'd be questioning me now. The married ones to find things out for themselves, the single ones to find out how far they can go. Impossible to let them down. I would invent acrobatics, sublime fainting spells, transports as they're called in the thousands, and one night's records. If you only heard me then, you'd never recognize me, Casanova. I dropped the meat onto the grill and instinctively stepped back against the wall. What a noise! Now it stopped. The meat lies there silently, faithful to its deceased state. I still think it's too big. It's not that you've let me down. It's true that I didn't expect anything special. Gradually we'll reveal ourselves to one another, discover our secrets, our little tricks, learn to please each other. And one day you and I will become a pair of perfect lovers, and then, right in the middle of an embrace, we'll disappear and the words, "the end," will appear on the screen. What's the matter? The meat is shrinking. No, I'm not seeing things. I'm not wrong. You can see the mark of its original size by the outline that it left on the grill. It was only a little bit bigger. Good. Maybe it'll be just the right size for our appetites. In my next movie, I'd like them to give me a different part. The White Sorceress in a savage village? No, today I don't feel as much inclined to either heroism or danger. Better a famous woman, a fashion designer or something like that. Rich and independent, who lives by herself in an apartment in New York, Paris, London. Her occasional affairs entertain her, but do not change her. She's not sentimental. After a breakup scene, she lights a cigarette and surveys the urban scenery through the picture window of her studio. Ah, the color of the meat looks much better now, only raw in a few obstinate places. But the rest is brown and gives off a delicious aroma. Will it be enough for the two of us? It looks very small to me. If I got dressed up now, I'd try on one of those dresses from my trousseau and go out. What would happen, Maybe an older man with a car would pick me up? Mature, retired. The only kind who can afford to be on the make at this time of day. What the devil's going on? This damn meat is starting to give off horrible black smoke. I should have turned it over. Burned on one side. Well, thank goodness it has another one. Miss, if you will allow me, Mrs., and I'm warning you, my husband is very jealous, then he shouldn't let you go out alone. You're a temptation to any passerby. Nobody in this world says passerby. Pedestrian? Only in the newspapers when they report accidents. You're a temptation for anyone. Meaningful silence. Glances of a sphinx. The older man has followed me at a safe distance. Better for him. Better for me. Because on the corner, my husband who's spying on me and who never leaves me alone, morning, noon, or night, who suspects everything and everybody, Your Honor. It's impossible to live this way. I want a divorce. Now what? This piece of meat's mother never told it that it was a meat not to act like it. It's curling up like a corkscrew pastry. Anyhow, I don't know where all that smoke can be coming from if I turned the stove off ages ago. Of course, dear Abby, what one must do now is open the window, plug it in the ventilator so it won't be smelly when my husband gets here, and I'll so cutely run right out to greet him at the door with my best dress on, my best smile, and my warmest invitation to eat out. It's a thought. We'll look at the restaurant menu while the miserable piece of charred meat lies hidden at the bottom of the garbage pail. I'll be careful not to mention this incident because I'd be considered a somewhat irresponsible wife, with frivolous tendencies but not mentally retarded. This is the initial public image that I project, and I've got to maintain it, even though it isn't accurate. There's another possibility. Don't open the window, don't turn on the ventilator, don't throw the meat in the garbage. When my husband gets here, let him smell it like the augurs in all the stories and tell him that no, it doesn't smell of human flesh here, but of useless woman. I'll exaggerate my compunction so he can be magnanimous. After all, what's happened is so normal. What newlywed doesn't do the same thing that I've done? When we visit my mother-in-law, who's still at the stage of not attacking me because she doesn't know my weak points yet, she'll tell me her own fixed experience. The time, for example, when her husband asked her to fix coddled eggs and she took him literally, ha ha ha. Did that stop her from becoming a fabulous cook? Because she was widowed much later and for other reasons? After that, she gave me free rein to her maternal instincts and spoiled everything with all her pamperings. No, he's not going to find it the least bit amusing. He's going to say that I got distracted, that it's the height of carelessness, and yes, condescendingly, I'm going to accept his accusations. That it isn't true, it isn't. I was watching the meat all the time, watching how a series of very odd things happened to it. St. Teresa was right when she said that God is in the stew pots. Or matter is energy, or whatever it's called now. Let's backtrack. First there's the piece of meat, one color, one shape, one size. Then it changes, looks even nicer, and you feel very happy. Then it starts changing again, and now it doesn't look so nice. It keeps changing and changing, and you just can't tell when you should stop it, because if I leave this piece of meat on the grill indefinitely, it will burn to a crisp till nothing is left of it. So that piece of meat that gave the impression of being so solid and real no longer exists. So, my husband also gives the impression of being solid and real when we're together, when I touch him, when I see him. He certainly changes, and I change too, although so slowly that neither of us realizes it. Then he goes off and suddenly becomes a memory, and, oh no, I'm not going to fall into that trap. The one about the invented character and the invented narrator and the invented antidote. Besides, it's not the consequence that lucidity follows from the meat episode. The meat hasn't stopped existing. It has undergone a series of metamorphoses. And the fact that it ceases to be perceptible for the senses does not mean that the cycle is concluded, but that it has taken the quantum leap. It will go on operating on other levels. On the level of my consciousness, my memory, my will, changing me, defining me, establishing the course of my future. From today on, I'll be wherever I choose to be at the moment. Seductively unbalanced, deeply withdrawn, hypocritical. From the very beginning I will impose, just a bit insult, the rules of the game. My husband will resent the appearance of my dominance, which will widen like the ripples on the surface of the water when someone has skipped a pebble across it. I'll struggle to prevail, and if he gives in, I'll retaliate with my scorn. And if he doesn't give in, I'll simply be unable to forgive him. If I assume another attitude, if I'm typical case, femininity that begs indulgence for her errors, the balance will tip in favor of my antagonist. I will be running the race with a handicap, which apparently seals my defeat, and which essentially guarantees my triumph by the winding path that my grandmothers took, the humble ones, the ones who didn't open their mouths except to say yes and achieve an obedience foreign to even their most irrational whims. The recipe, of course, is ancient and its efficiency is proven. If I still doubt, all I have to do is ask my neighbor. She'll confirm my sincerity. She'll confirm my certainty. It's just that it revolts me to behave that way. This definition is not applicable to me, the former one either. Neither corresponds to my inner truth or safeguards my authenticity. Must I grasp some one of them and blind myself to its terms only because it's a cliché accepted by the majority and intelligible to everyone? And it's not just because I'm aware of this. You can say about me what Fandel said about Sor Juana, that I belong to the class of hesitant neurotics. The diagnosis is very easy, but what consequences does this assumption hold? If I insist on affirming my version of the facts, my husband is going to look at me suspiciously. He's going to live in continual expectation I'll be declared insane. Our life together could not be more problematic. He doesn't want conflict of any kind, much less abstract, absurd, metaphysical conflicts as the one I represent.